As America approaches its 250th birthday, the story of our nation, it's not just written in textbooks, it's preserved in artifacts, letters, moments frozen in time. And if we're lucky, we get to walk a mile in history's shoes, one story at a time.
I love history.
Inside the George Washington Museum, history lives in the details.
We've got cuff link, shirt button, part of his surveying tools, some letters that he wrote.
Letters between George and his wife, Martha Washington, written and received at the dawn of the American Revolution.
But those two were written right at the beginning of the Revolution when he was chosen to be Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army.
Letters written in the 1700s that curator Don Raylier said were not meant to be seen, adding Martha burned most letters after reading them.
And maybe she just didn't want the future to see into their personal life.
In June of 1775, George Washington was appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army, leading the colonies through the Revolutionary War.
He was also involved in the Constitutional Convention. He was the president of that, and that's where our Constitution was created.
A Constitution that still guides our nation nearly 250 years later.
It's the guiding principle for the establishment of our country.
From letters to furniture, documents, artifacts, history preserved to remind us of the many men and women who blazed the trail before us.
I'm celebrating the fact that we live in the greatest country in the world. I'm celebrating the fact that we have a very strong military. I'm celebrating the fact that people vote and establish our government through their vote.
As America celebrates 250 years of independence, stories like this remind us history, it's not just about where we came from, it's about who we are and who we continue to be. Every week, we'll celebrate America's 250th anniversary with a story that pumps pride into the great veins of our state.
Nice and packed tight.
At American Village in Montevallo, history isn't just taught, it's experienced. From colonial streets to the story of independence, this campus is preparing visitors for a milestone the chief historian, Val Croft, says is nearly 250 years in the making.
Yeah, this is kind of our baby here, Independence Hall recreation. The idea for it, our founder Tom Walker had several years ago, probably 20-some years ago.
The building behind Croft is a recreation of Independence Hall, where the Declaration of Independence and Constitution were born.
Well, Independence Hall was originally called the Pennsylvania State House, and it's where the Second Continental Congress met and drew up the Declaration of Independence in 1776. It's also where the Congress met in 1787 to draw up the Constitution.
But here, history doesn't just stop at the door. It comes alive through the people who tell its stories.
These are just buildings. Without them, the interpreter staff you're going to see some later today, they are the heart of the village, as far as I'm concerned.
Just as Alabamians are the heart of our state, American Village now serving as Alabama's celebration capital of the nation for America's 250th anniversary, blazing a trail of change.
And I think that's important because it allows them to see how those struggles are not completely unlike struggles we see even today. The importance of discussion, conversation, compromise along the way.
And the goal? Making sure the next generation doesn't just learn history, but understands their role in it.
I think it's important that we view this as a new beginning. It's important throughout our history to stop and pause and think about the principles of equality, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness.
250 years ago, Alabama as we know it, it wasn't a state. It was a large area of land for communities of indigenous people that would later create the largest cast iron statue in the world. Inside the Vulcan Park and Museum, Alabama's story unfolds one era at a time, from indigenous homelands to the rise of iron and steel and the birth of a city that helped shape a nation.
So we became a state in 1819. So what we had before that was large populations of Creek Native Americans primarily.
By the turn of the century, Birmingham was booming. Iron and steel built the Magic City and powered daily life for thousands of families.
This is meant to represent and look like a commissary in a mining town, in a steel town. So a lot of the money you earned in the steel and iron industry, you also spent getting the things that your family needed.
And as Birmingham grew, so did its ambition.
How do we tell the world that we're here? How do we tell the world that we're the Pittsburgh of the South?
The answer still stands over the city today.
They thought, what better representation than Vulcan, right? He's the god of forge and fire. And so I think that Vulcan in particular, once he was cast, at the time, he was the world's largest cast iron statue. But what's interesting is he remains the world's largest cast iron statue.
A world built with Alabama's iron, and a reminder that the story of this state and this country is still being forged. For America 250, I'm Ashanti Ford. It is negative 25 degrees in here. It's freezing, and that's kind of the point. Long before this ice cream right here makes it to your freezer, it's gotta survive this one. In America, ice cream is more than a dessert. It's a year-round staple, a celebration food, and for generations, a comfort. It's only $1?
Only $1 for a scoop.
No way! Bluebell ice cream got its start in 1907, at the turn of the last century. More than 100 years later, one of its most important facilities calls Sylacauga home, serving families across Alabama and the Southeast.
This is where we kind of prep our final finished good product, and we load our transport trucks and our local route trucks for deliveries.
And this freezer, it's the last stop before Bluebell hits store shelves and kitchen tables from Birmingham to Mobile and far beyond state lines. Every pallet, every pint, tracked, checked, and kept cold.
We can hold around 9,000 pallets total in this facility, so it's total half gallons, pints, 3 gallons, and all the novelties we make.
It takes a certain kind of person to work in here. Negative 25 degrees, hours at a time, all to make sure a tradition stays intact.
You gotta like the cold, number one, and then it's just, you gotta be pretty dedicated to work in this environment.
And that dedication is part of what's kept Bluebell going through world wars, economic crashes, and a global pandemic.
Bluebell started originally in Brenham, Texas in 1907 as just a small company, and has over the years expanded into a much larger company throughout the United States.
And more than a century later, the company remains family-owned, not publicly traded, and proud of it.
We're still considered even though we're a large company now, we still have that family feel when you work here, and it's a very proud place to work, and everybody takes a lot of pride in what they do.
From orange sherbet to black walnut to flavors dreamed up by employees themselves, Bluebell has learned that in America, choice matters.
We try to make everyone as happy as we can, but at any given time, we can have up to 30 flavors in the market. But the process of making a flavor really begins with our own employees, and then trends in the market. If there's something that's going on that's popular, we'll try to make that a dessert. But we also is just trial and error. We've had some really good flavors that are still around, and then we've had some that you may never see again. But we've had, we pride ourselves on really giving a variety.
And while Bluebell may have started in Texas, Alabama plays a major role in its future.
We make it here in Sylacauga, ship it around the country, including all over Alabama.
As America approaches its 250th anniversary, Bluebell stands as a reminder that some of the most enduring pieces of our history aren't in museums. They're in our homes, our communities, and sometimes right there in the freezer. For America 250, I'm Ashanti Ford. In the 60s, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he sat behind these very bars in the Birmingham City Jail. But these bars, they couldn't contain his message, his mission, challenging America to be a better place. And almost 60 years later, that message, it still resonates with so many people. But it's important that you know the familiar names, Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, doesn't even scratch the surface of how many people were truly involved in that movement. Inside the Institute, the story starts with a name many history books don't mention.
Whenever you want to talk about Birmingham history, you have to include Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth. Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth is the civil rights leader here for the city of Birmingham.
When Alabama outlawed the NAACP, he kept the movement alive.
What people don't understand is that the state of Alabama literally tried to stop the modern day civil rights movement by outlawing the NAACP. And it was Fred Shuttlesworth founding his organization that picked up where the NAACP left off so that we wouldn't lose the momentum from the modern day civil rights movement.
But Birmingham's history is also wrapped in violence.
Birmingham had over 50 unsolved bombings from the 1940s to the 1960s as KKK's number one weapon became dynamite. And so that hence the nickname Birmingham. As this was a means to instill fear in the black community.
That terror hit Shuttleworth's own home.
The KKK tried to kill Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth by placing 11 sticks of dynamite outside his bedroom window. When that blast went off, Fred was blown into the ceiling, came down into a crater where his bed used to be, and has to get his wife, his children, and some friends of his out of the household.
And then in 1963, the movement shifted, the younger generation fiercely blazing their own trail.
It was those young people that literally shut the city of Birmingham down. You had over 5,000 children that were arrested. Youngest boy that was arrested was 4 years old. Youngest girl that was arrested was 6.
And the detail that still stops people in their tracks.
It was so many children being arrested that not only did they fill the Birmingham City Jail, they filled the Bessemer City Jail and the Jefferson County Jail. But it was so many children going to jail that they had to call out Jefferson County school buses to take these children to jail.
In a city once called Birmingham, it was the kids who helped break the system that built it. For Amazing America 250, I'm Ashanti Ford. Jackie Robinson, he broke baseball's color barriers during segregation. This was a time in our history where black and whites, they weren't even allowed to play a game of checkers together. It was a crime that could get you arrested. But today, a rich history that Birmingham tried to bury, brought to you by one of the last surviving members of the Negro Major League.
This area that we call our dugout is where we start.
As we walk into the Negro Southern League Museum, you feel it immediately. This isn't just a collection of old uniforms. It's a space designed to put you inside a story that was once forced outside the lines. So as we're walking in, I immediately feel like I'm in a different space. The museum is designed like a ballpark because this league wasn't a footnote, it was a field of history. And it starts with an overview of just how widespread black baseball was at a time when black athletes were locked out of most professional sports.
So this floor map just represents different places all around the country where the Negro Leagues were concentrated.
And at the heart of that Southern story is where we find Birmingham.
And so the Birmingham Black Barons were a central team to the Southern Major League teams.
History that runs deep, decades before Jackie Robinson.
And so right here we have a list of some interesting facts of Negro League history, starting with the first recorded black baseball game in 1855.
And this timeline leads to some of the most well-known dates in American sports. But the museum makes clear integration didn't create black talent. It finally stopped pretending it didn't exist.
All the way up until the integration of modern baseball with Jackie Robinson in 1947.
But between those dates, these players also had to survive the country they were traveling through. And that's where we find the Green Book, a guide that helped black Americans find safe places to eat, sleep, and get gas during segregation. And for many Negro League teams, traveling was a part of the job, part of the paycheck, and a part of the risk.
And there you can see that there was a young man by the name of Willie Mays who was batting 8th, which is unheard of for a player of his caliber, but at this time he was only 17 years old.
And right there with him, a name that still lives in Birmingham, Bill Greason.
And there's also a gentleman behind him named Bill Greason who was batting 9th. He was the pitcher.
And at 101 years old, he is now the last surviving member of the Negro Southern League.
Well, it started sandlot ball, you know, what we call sandlot, just fooling around on a field. They saw me playing sandlot ball one day and invited me to come try out, but I never asserted myself.
A mentality often seen in the South back then, and sometimes a code of fear some still live by today.
When you're down here, you don't have 44, and so I tried to stay down.
Greason, just thankful to be a part of something that even back then he knew was special. And that same feeling can be relived in this museum, a place that doesn't just preserve stats and jerseys, it provides proof that Black excellence thrived even when America tried to limit its reach.
We have everybody in here from Satchel Paige to Willie Mays and some other lesser known figures.
And that's the point. This isn't just about who made it into the majors. It's about who should have been there all along. For Amazing America 250, I'm Ashanti Ford. Here at Rickwood Field, where baseball legends, they once played under the weight of segregation. But Mr. Bill Greason's story, it goes far beyond this diamond. As one of the last known members of the Negro Southern League, one of the first Black Marines to serve in World War II, Mr. Bill Greason's life is not just history, it's America's story. And when we ask where that story begins, he takes us straight to service.
Well, I was in the Marines during the Second World War when they started introducing us blacks for the Corps.
He was part of the 66th Platoon at Montford Point, among the first Black men ever inducted into the Marine Corps.
I was in the 66th Platoon, and that's where they had some of us first starting out.
From training to California and then overseas to Japan, in the aftermath of a war that began for America at Pearl Harbor, a time that he says he has fought hard to forget.
I was there and I stayed there, I think 12 or 13 months in Nagasaki, Sasebo, Hiroshima, where they dropped that atomic bomb right there, and stayed there for 13 months, I think it was.
Including the aftermath of the atomic bomb.
I tried to blot out all this stuff because it was too bad to see, especially where they dropped that atomic bomb. It was a terrible sight to see. And God took care of me.
Faith that motivated him to continue fighting for his country, even though that same country, through segregation, proved they were not willing to fight for him. Greason grew up poor in Atlanta, right across the street from a familiar face.
We used to live right across the street from Dr. Martin Luther King. When you're poor, not poor, poor.
Poor, Black, serving a country still wrestling with racism. So when the war ended, he came home and kept his head down.
No, I tried to keep a low profile.
But now, nearly a century later, there is nothing low profile about a life that spans the Negro Southern League, tells the history as one of the first Black Marines in the ruins of Hiroshima. And Mr. Bill Greason is a living reminder that some of the greatest American stories are the ones that almost went untold. For Amazing America 250, I'm Ashanti Ford. If these walls right here behind me, if they could talk, they would tell 115 years worth of stories. Lunch after church, first dates, generations of families, and then of course, the regulars who don't even need a menu. Here at Bright Star, Alabama history is served daily with a side of cornbread.
It's evolved over time. From very small to very large. You look at some old pictures from the early 20th century and compare it to what we have now, it's unbelievable.
Bright Star opened its doors in 1907, and more than a century later, it remains a gathering place where tradition never goes out of style. In the kitchen, the rhythm is steady. Flour dusts the air, cast iron sizzles, and recipes that have fed generations still lead the menu.
We'll probably sell about 40 to 50 of those every day for lunch.
Those signature dishes, from seafood, gumbo, beef tips, rice, aren't just meals, they're memories.
One of our most popular dishes is the Greek snapper and the beef tips on the rice.
And while the menu is famous, it's the people behind it who make the difference.
I got here in 1984.
More than 4 decades in the same kitchen.
Good employers, it's kind of like a family atmosphere. They treat everybody like family, and they take care of us.
That family atmosphere extends beyond staff to customers who have been coming for decades.
We got some customers that come every day.
Oh, wow.
Every day. We know them, they know us by name. We know them by name. We almost know what they're going to order.
In a fast-changing world, Bright Star has remained a constant, a place where the sides taste like Granny's house, and Mondays still mean meat and 3.
Everything you can get at your granny's house.
Everything that you can get.
More than a restaurant, it's a living timeline of Alabama, surviving wars, recessions, pandemics, social change, yet still filling tables for 115 years. Through every season, one thing has never changed: community. For Amazing America 250, I'm Ashanti Ford.